Here's a curious historical footnote. In medieval Europe, churches were known as poor men's inns during winter. They didn't just offer sanctuary, they offered heat. Monasteries especially would open their doors to travelers and beggars for a few hours at a time. It was part charity, part penance. Of course, not all churches welcomed the poor. Some turned them away outright, or made them kneel for hours before offering anything more than a glance. You stay until the bells ring noon. That's when they usually start asking questions. Are you praying? Are you waiting for someone? Are you going to leave? So, you leave. Your next stop is the alley behind the cobbler's shop. Not for boots, they're far too expensive, but because this shop has a vent in the back wall. Just a tiny one, but enough that heat leaks out. You stand there with your back against the bricks, letting the air puff against your coat like the breath of a sleeping beast. A few others join you. No one talks. You all know the rules. If someone coughs too loud, the owner will slam the vent shut. You stay for maybe 30 minutes, long enough to feel your fingers again, long enough for the pain to creep out of your bones. Then you move on, before someone else pushes you out of the way. There's an academic theory still debated that poor people in winter developed a kind of urban heat map in their minds. Not of warmth like we think of it today, but of access. Which bakeries were kindest? Which businesses allowed loitering? Which back alleys had working steam vents? It was social geography at its bleakest survival through memorized warmth. You're part of that map now. By dusk, you're back home, hands trembling but still attached. You didn't spend a single coin. You didn't die. That counts as a good day. You wrap up again in bed, tucking your scarf around your face and pulling the blanket over your head. It smells like mildew and old ash. You don't care. You just want to feel something soft, even if it's only the illusion of safety. Somewhere outside, a dog howls once, then silence. And in that silence, you realize even warmth can be stolen, but never for long. You can tell something's wrong before you open your eyes. It's in the stillness of the room, heavier than usual, the kind of quiet that presses on your ribs like a weight. You roll over slowly and notice your lungs are fighting harder this morning. The air tastes different, thicker with a faint metallic sharpness. It doesn't feel like breathing. It feels like pulling in smoke that never clears. You sit up coughing long and dry until your chest aches and your head spins. That's new, and that's not good. You reach for the mug near your bed, but the water in it has frozen into a cloudy, uneven disk. You tip it anyway, hoping for something liquid. Nothing. Not a single drop. Your throat is raw. Your nose is bleeding again, and your skin stings from the dryness. You wipe your upper lip with your sleeve, only to find the fabric already stiff. From yesterday's blood. Welcome to another day of existing. The worst part of getting sick in winter when you're poor isn't the sickness. It's the knowledge that you can't afford to get sick in the first place. You can't rest. You can't medicate. You can't take time off from work you don't even have. There's no buffer. One cough too deep, and it's the beginning of the end. And here you are now, hunched over your knees, coughing so hard it feels like your ribs might crack open. You know this cough. It's the one that's been going around. Everyone's calling it the cold lung. You've seen what it does. Starts like this tight chest, shallow breathing, a rattle when you exhale. Then comes the fever, then the weight loss. Then for some, the coffin, or if you're lucky, a blanket pulled over your face in the middle of the night while the house stays quiet. You drag yourself out of bed anyway. The sun's up, but barely. The light through the window is colorless and weak, like someone painted it with dirty water. You pull on your coat, which still hasn't dried from yesterday, and wrap your scarf extra tight. You try not to think about the kids who used to wear scarves like this for fun, with matching mittens and laughter in their mouths. You try not to think about anything. Outside, the frost is heavier than it's been in weeks. The cobblestones are slick with ice, and your boots spatched for the third time with wax paper slide every few steps. You walk with your arms slightly out for balance. The whole street looks like it's been dipped in glass. Even the rats are walking slower. You pass by Mrs. Denham's place on the way to nowhere. She used to sit by her window and knit. You haven't seen her in days. There's a black cloth tied to the door now. You nod slightly as you go by. You don't stop. You don't have the energy to grieve people anymore. You make it to the general store not because you can buy anything, but because standing near the front door means a few seconds of indoor air each time someone opens it. You stand there like a statue, face turned away, pretending to study the window display. Someone walks past and mutters something under their breath. You can't make it out. You don't care. You cough again, and this time there's something wet. You check your sleeve. Blood. Just a dot. But enough. You turn your face to the wall and let it pass. The last thing you need is someone thinking you're contagious. The irony, of course, is that you are contagious, just not enough to make anyone care. Historically, winter diseases ravaged the poor in ways we still struggle to quantify. Tuberculosis, influenza, pneumonia, illnesses we now associate with old age or weak immunity were once as common as frost. And once they hit the lower class, they spread fast. Damp homes, close quarters, poor nutrition, and open sewers turned entire neighborhoods into breeding grounds. There's a bitter little fringe theory that the only reason some cities even bothered cleaning up their slums in the 19th century was because disease started moving uphill, affecting the rich. That's when people started caring. Not when the poor died, but when the poor made the rich sick. Maybe that's true. Maybe it's just one more way history repeats itself. You leave the storefront and start heading toward the church again. Not because you're religious, but because there's warmth and sometimes tea. You don't expect tea today. Your breath hitches halfway there. Not a cough, something else. You feel lightheaded. You stop walking, lean against the side of a building, and take slow, shallow breaths. The world swims a little. You blink fast. Don't faint. Don't fall. If you fall here, no one will help you up. Eventually, the air steadies. Your legs stop shaking. You keep walking. Inside the church, the pews are half full. Mostly people like you shivering, silent, waiting for the something that probably isn't coming. The priest gives a few words about suffering, about endurance, about spring. You sit and breathe through your scarf, eyes closed. Every now and then, you hear someone cough, and your body tightens in response. It's like a symphony of decay. You're just another instrument. You remember when you used to light candles here, back when you had something to ask for. Now, if you lit one, you wouldn't even know what to say. Please make the air less sharp. Please let me keep my lungs. You don't stay long. It's too warm. Ironically, makes your head spin again. You head back into the street, where the cold at least keeps you alert. Here's something strange. Some historical records show that people in deep poverty often welcomed the cold, not because they enjoyed it, but because it gave them a sense of control. Cold meant you were still alive, still fighting. Fever, on the other hand, meant you were slipping. And when you stopped feeling the cold entirely, that's when people knew to start digging. Back home, you collapse onto the bed and pull. The cover's over your face. Your chest is rattling now. Each breath feels like dragging air through broken glass. You wish you could sweat it out, but your skin is dry and cold to the touch. You don't know if this is the flu or just another bout of winter fatigue. You don't know if your body's failing or simply adapting. What you do know is that you can't afford to rest. But tonight, you don't get a choice. Tonight, you lie still and hope your lungs make it till morning. You wake up sweating, which would be great if it weren't also terrifying. The fever must have crept in during the night. Soft as sicker than you are. No one wants to stand near. The contagious one, not out of fear of infection, but out of fear that the workers might turn you away. Too far gone is something you've heard whispered before. It takes over an hour to reach the front. The volunteer, a girl barely older than 16, cheeks red from standing near the fire inside, hands you the tin cup without meeting your eyes. You nod anyway. The broth is hot. It burns your tongue, and you don't care. It's the best thing you've tasted in days. You sit on the curb and sip slowly, letting the steam sting your face, hoping it loosens whatever's settled in your lungs. Every now and then, you glance at the others. A boy with a burst lip and no shoes. A woman in her 40s, with hair falling. Out in clumps, an old man staring straight ahead, not blinking. No one talks. Here's a fact that doesn't make it into most history books. Soup kitchens weren't originally about food. They were about order. Cities started them in the 1800s not just to feed the poor, but to keep them from rioting. A warm bowl meant fewer bodies breaking shop windows, a calculated kindness, designed to maintain peace more than dignity. There's a fringe theory that charity during winter was a kind of public performance. Middle class. Guilt turned into ladles and him singing. You sometimes think about that when you're handed food by someone wearing gloves worth more than your entire wardrobe. But you take the food anyway. You open the door. The heat hits you like a wave. Your eyes water instantly. The warmth is overwhelming, and your whole body tenses in confusion. It almost hurts. The chemist doesn't look up right away. You take a step forward, eyes on the wood. Stove in the back corner. What do you need? He says flatly. You hold up your hand without speaking, just the hand. Red, raw, trembling. He walks over, gives it a quick glance, then sighs. Chilblains, possibly a frostbite. He says, "Nothing I can give you without coin. You'd need a sov. Oil-based, not cheap." You nod. Knowing this was a mistake, he watches you another second, then softens. Soak it in warm, not hot, water. Wrap it in something dry. That's the best you'll do. You nod again. "Thank you." You whisper. "Don't linger," he adds, already turning away dots so you don't. You step back out into the cold, and the world slams shut again. That advice, at least, was real. Historical treatments for frostbite were hit or miss back then. Some swore by rubbing snow on the skin to wake it up, which probably did more harm than good. Others believed in brandy, or applying animal fat, or praying. You've tried the praying. Not sure it helps. Your hands are aching again, but you've learned to ignore them. You walk past the chapel where the soup line is even longer today. No soup left, probably. Just bodies pretending there might be. You pass by the alley where that boy was. He's not there now. Just an empty bottle and some slushy footprints. The sun is going down already. That's the worst part of winter, the days that end before they've even started. You swear the sky was grey just 5 minutes ago, and now it's sliding into darkness. And you know what that means. Nights are worse. The cold isn't just stronger, it's bolder. It creeps into your bones. Yes, but also your thoughts. It makes you question every decision, every moment, every flicker of hope. You start thinking about warm baths you will never have again, about thick socks, about holding someone's hand without flinching from the pain, about all the little luxuries that used to be so invisible. There's an ongoing academic argument whether winter itself is a killer or just an amplifier. Does it really cause death? or just speed up what poverty already starts? Is it the season or the system? You don't need a textbook to know the answer. You live it. Back home, you sit near the window with your injured hand tucked beneath your arm. You flex your fingers every now and then just to be sure they're still there. You're not even trying to get warm anymore. You're just trying not to fall apart. And that's the thing, isn't it? Winter doesn't always kill you outright. Sometimes it just takes you one piece at a time. You start noticing the sun disappears earlier every day. Not that it gives off much warmth when it is up. It's just a pale coin in the sky now, flickering weakly above the rooftops before slipping away like it's tired of trying, which, honestly, same dot by late afternoon. The city starts glowing in shades of grey and blue, and a kind of hush falls over everything. The cold dampens sound. Footsteps are quieter, carts roll slower. Even the stray dogs stop barking. It's like winter is muting the world, one frozen breath at a time. That silence doesn't help when night falls, though. That's when the real loneliness creeps in. Not just because it's dark, but because there's no way to hide from how little you have. And when you're poor in winter, light is a luxury. Most nights, you don't even bother lighting a candle. You can't afford wax, and oil is just a memory at this point. Instead, you sit in the dark, staring at shadows on the walls, listening to the house groan around you as the beams contract in the cold. People talk about the cold like it's the main problem. It's not. The dark is worse. Cold steals your feeling, sure, but the dark steals your mind. You tried saving your last candle for emergencies, but every night starts to feel like one. You light it anyway, a tiny flame in a big room. The light flickers and dances, casting long, moving shadows across the walls. For a few minutes, it makes you feel almost human. You pretend you're at a dinner table, maybe at a tavern, maybe reading a book. The warmth of the fantasy lasts just a moment. Then the wick sputters, the wax gives way, and the flame dies with a whisper. And now it's darker than before. Back in the day, families used to crowd around a hearth not just for heat, but because it was the only source of light. Candles were expensive, oil lamps even more so. Poorer households rationed both like gold. That's why so many bedtime stories were born in winter. Because when the sun went down and there was nothing to see, there was still the voice of someone next to you telling a tale to hold off the dark. But when you live alone, or when everyone else is too tired to speak, there's no story, only silence. You stumble through your space, bumping into furniture, trying not to curse too loudly. Swearing somehow makes the darkness feel even heavier, like it's listening. You stub your toe on a chair and bite your lip to stop from yelling. You're not sure if your lip's bleeding or just cracked open again. Either way, it tastes the same, eventually. You find the bed or the pile of rags you call one. You crawl in and pull the blanket tight, curling your body into the smallest shape possible. It's easier to warm yourself when you take up less space. You learned that trick early on. And tonight, you press your hands to your stomach and try not to think about how long until sunrise. Here's something weird. Historically, it wasn't unusual for people to sleep in shifts during winter. Not for work, but for warmth. They'd sleep a few hours, wake up shivering, then sit around the embers of the fire before going back to bed. Some called it first sleep, and second sleep a natural reaction to the cold and darkness. It wasn't peaceful. It was survival in intervals. You try to drift off, but your thoughts start spinning. You remember someone once saying that the dark is when the poor do their best thinking because there's nothing left to do but think. You wish they were wrong. Your mind begins pulling things up from the bottom of the river regrets. Memories, hunger, cold, worry. It's like your brain decided now was the perfect time to throw a parade of everything you're trying not to feel. Then there's the paranoia. You think you hear something outside, maybe footsteps. Maybe just the whine, but your heart jumps anyway. You live in a neighborhood where locked doors don't mean much. Desperation makes thieves, and winter makes lots of desperation. You lie still, holding your breath, listening. Nothing. Probably just the roof creaking again. Or maybe someone really is out there. Listening back. You miss light. Not just candles or firelight, but real touch, steady light, something that pushes back the dark without flickering. You remember the way sunlight used to fall across your bed in summer warm and golden and careless. Now your windows are covered in frost, and even the moon looks colder than usual. There's a fringe theory, one of those off-the-books historical things, that claims entire villages used to go near feral during deep winter. Not in the Wolfman sense, but in terms of mental state. Too much cold, too much darkness, too much waiting for things to get better. Some accounts mention people babbling to themselves for hours or staring at candles, like they were gods. Whether it's true or not, you get it. You feel your own grip slipping a little sometimes. Not dramatically, just the little things. You start forgetting how long it's been since you spoke to someone. You wake up not remembering what day it is. You stare at your hands longer than you should, watching your breath fog round them. You start asking yourself questions in the dark just to hear a voice. How long until the candle runs out? How long until you can't afford another? How long until you can't afford you anymore? You try humming. It helps a bit. The tune is off-key and slow, and you can't even remember what song it is, but the sound fills the room for a few seconds, makes the dark feel a little less smug. Still, the silence comes back. It always comes back, eventually. You drift into sleep not because you're comfortable, but because your body gives up. Your mind keeps drifting, though, even in dreams. You dream of firelight, full bellies and glowing windows, and warmth that doesn't ask anything in return. The kind of warmth that comes with a door that stays closed and walls that don't leak. And when you wake again, there's frost on your pillow, not outside inside. That's when you know the candle wasn't the only thing burning out. You sleep in every piece of clothing you own. Shirt, coat, trousers, scarf, even socks on your hands. Makeshift mittens with holes in the heels where your fingers poke out. You wrap yourself tight, cocooned in threadbare layers, and still you wake shivering. This morning, it's your breath that wakes you, not the sound of it, but the sight. You open your eyes and see it hanging in the air, a slow cloud of mist swirling, just inches from your face. There's a thin sheen of frost on the blanket. The room smells like damp wool and stale air. You cough sharp and dry. It burns in your chest, but you're not sure if it's from the cold or the mold creeping along the corners of the room. Your sister used to sleep across from you, back when the two of you could take turns stoking the fire. Back when there was a fire. Back when someone else in the room made it easier to ignore how your toes throbbed through the night. But she married last spring, moved to a better house, or so she said. You haven't heard from her in months. You imagine her in a room with thick quilts and a kitchen that still has salt. There's a quiet panic that comes with waking up this cold. You move your fingers slowly. 1, 2, 3. You lose count. Then start again. They still work mostly, but